The end and aim of human evolution, the road to be traveled, the means whereby that end is gained. The black cross, the twining green stem of the plant, the thorns, the blood-red roses, in these is hidden the solution of the world mystery, man's past evolution, present constitution, and particularly the secret of his future development. Notice, go back to this graphic here. Notice the twining branch, like DNA, and the blood red, because your DNA is in your blood, and the thorns. Thorns is an incredibly powerful biblical symbol. When mankind first sinned, God cursed the ground with thorns. God uses the curse of thorns and briars all throughout the Scriptures. Paul had a thorn in his flesh. God told the Israelites that because they didn't remove all the Canaanites out of the land, that they were going to be thorns in their sides and scourges in their flesh. Paul talked about his thorn was a messenger of Satan, an angel of Satan, to buffet him. Christ died on the cross. The Bible says he made a show of his enemies openly, and he had upon his head the crown of thorns. A crown is a king. We're referring to the king of the bottomless pit. You remember the movie, The Omen. What was that kid's name? Damien Thorn. So the symbol and the meaning behind the rose cross is that you have the thorns in the chromosomes, and that's the key right there. That's the key. And it's in there, and it needs to be let out. You see, watch this. It needs to be unsealed. Because your DNA, I'm here rolling up my notes here. Your DNA is like a scroll rolled up, and it's sealed. And it needs to be opened up. When it's opened up, it's like Pandora's box. You're going to let all this stuff out. You're going to let the thorn out of the X chromosome. That's what Rosicrucian doctrine is all about. That's what was being taught in the X-Men. That not just these particular, like Magneto and Professor X and all these other, there's even a character in there by the name of Darwin. He ends up getting killed. But he has the power to adapt. He represents evolution. The power to adapt, to survive. Think about it. One of these other gods, I was talking about these gods that had died and resurrected. One of them, who was also crucified, was called Prometheus. Now here's a graphic of Prometheus featured at Rockefeller Plaza. Prometheus is a god, I'll explain this in a little bit, is a god who stole fire from the gods and shared it with mankind. I'll tell you what that means in a little bit, because this was interesting to me. Prometheus being this god who died on a cross, he was killed because he took the enlightenment of the gods, or the fire from the gods, and gave it mankind, and the gods didn't like that. So they killed him. Remember, enlightenment. What was it that the devil said to Eve in the Garden of Eden? Then your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. So all of these myths trace right back to the Scriptures. Here's what's interesting. In Superman 5, actually, it was what it was. It was sort of the continuing saga of the original Superman series. You have Lex Luthor, who hates Jor-El. Jor-El, you remember, Kal-El went back to find Krypton for 5 years. He comes back. He's got a little boy, 5 years old. He's got superpowers. He's like Horus now, okay? And Lex Luthor has Lois Lane and this little boy on his yacht. And he's got in the background, you ought to see this movie, a graphic or a picture of Prometheus. And Lex Luthor likes Prometheus because Prometheus is like the trickster god who stole fire, stole the gods' power from the gods and gave it to mankind. And Lex Luthor hates Superman because Superman won't share his powers with him. The god of Lex Luthor is Prometheus. So Prometheus stole fire, which is divine light, immortality, or godhood, and he seeks to share it with all mankind. So now we have another movie to watch. It's called Prometheus. Now I can remember, Prometheus is what's called a prequel. A prequel is you have a set of movies, but you want to go back and sort of build the story. That's how Star Wars was developed. Do you remember the movie Alien? Oh my goodness, I remember seeing this movie back in the 80s, and I'm just going, oh, wow. Now, I haven't really kept up with all of the Alien movies since then, Alien versus Predator, and I haven't seen that one. But then they came out with Prometheus, the prequel to it. You find out in Prometheus that where these aliens come from, because there was a guy by the name of Peter Whalen. He was the CEO of Whalen Corporation, and he funds an expedition to follow this map. They found this secret map all over the planet, and Whalen builds this spaceship called Prometheus. He's going to go to this moon. He's going to follow the star chart to this moon because he wants to find the engineers, the people who he said designed humanity. Prometheus. Why does Whalen, you find out Whalen is actually on the ship. Why does Whalen want to go back to this moon to find the engineers? Because Whalen is dying. Whalen is a very powerful man. And he doesn't want to give up his power and his money, and he doesn't want to die. So he's hoping to go back to find from the engineers how to live forever. He wants the key to immortality. This theme, again, another constant theme in these movies. Iron Man 3 talks about a project called the Extremis Project. In fact, there was a graphic novel series called Iron Man, the Invincible Iron Man, Extremis. And you find out in the plot of Iron Man 3, this involves the invention of this thing called Extremis. And what it is, it's a DNA-altering substance that has regenerative powers. In other words, and you saw in the movie, if you saw Iron Man 3, you saw, I don't remember what her name was, Iron Man's chick. Anyway, she ends up getting killed, but because she has been injected with Extremis, she comes back to life. And so Iron Man, now, he's transformed. If you remember at the end of the movie, he has that Iron Man thing taken out of him. He's got Extremis in him, and he doesn't need that anymore. He's free from the bondage of his shell of Iron Man. Maybe I'm making this up, but it has everything to do with DNA alteration to give man regenerative properties, thus immortality. Now, again, from the Scriptures, let me show you what this looks like. Daniel chapter 2, verse 40. The fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh... Stop right here. Iron Man. Think about it, because what you're going to see in Daniel 2 is the iron kingdom mingled with the man world. Iron Man. You say, oh, come on, Mike. Stan Lee was just a guy drawing comics, tried to make money. You don't really believe that he was... No, I've already shown you that people like Blavatsky and Nietzsche, Crowley, a bunch of these others, well, I already showed you the comic book writers, they were all occult influenced. These people knew their stuff. They were being led by spirits to dream up these concepts and thus con and deliver the lie to mankind. Iron Man. I'll show it to you in the Bible. The fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things. And as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. But they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And you understand that concept. You cannot patch iron with clay. I mean, it'll stick on there as long as it's wet, but after a while, you can just knock it off. It will not stick together. And that's the king. That's why it won't work. That's why the kingdom is divided against itself. They're opposites. One, clay is soft and malleable. Iron is hard and permanent. And you cannot mix them two together. And that's why the kingdom of the last days will break in pieces and fall. It will not stand. And how does the whole image of Nebuchadnezzar is standing on the feet? How does, and it has 10 toes, 10 commandments, because the strength of sin is the law, 10 commandments. And so how does, if you follow this in Daniel chapter 2, you'll see a stone cut without hands, that's Jesus. And when he goes to bring down the image, he doesn't hit the head or the chest or the legs. He goes and destroys the feet. So now the image cannot stand. God's going to destroy two kingdoms all at once. He's going to destroy the power of man and the power of these gods all at once. That is so, I love this. It's so beautiful. So we have this concept from the Bible of DNA alteration of mankind in the last days. TV show based on this whole comic book thing called the 4400, science fiction. The 4400 was about these people that had disappeared all over Earth from like the 1900s on, and now they've all reappeared. All 4,400 of them. Think of the fourth kingdom. 4,400 of them all come back now, because what happened was you find out that they were secretly transported into the future. All of these people, children and adults, were given these superpowers by having their DNA augmented. And then they were returned back to the earth, to the present time, so that they could alter time. One of the things that's said about the Antichrist in the book of Daniel is that he is seeking to change times and laws. They get it right from the Bible. 4,400, notice the symbol, DNA. I never missed an episode of this, and I was really sad when it went. I mean, I'm just being honest with you. It is in my nature. I'm going, Superman, comic books, science fiction. That's me. I mean, that's how I grew up. I still have that fascination with it. And I have to be careful. I'll be honest with you. I have to be careful that I'm not just watching this because I think there's something to be gleaned from here. But I watched every episode of The Heroes. And sure enough, you find out, here's that symbol. You remember, if you've ever seen any of these, here's that symbol on here. And you don't know what it is until you find out from the corporation that has this symbol that it's like half of the DNA strand. And you find out that all of these people here in this movie, in this TV show, they all have superpowers. They can fly, they can transport, they can change time, they can do mental telepathy and put thoughts in people's heads. They have superpowers, whatever. You remember Sylar? He ends up playing Spock in Star Trek. He's the guy that, in order to get the superpowers, he has to eat the brain of the people with the... Where do they come up with this stuff? But the heroes are all people who have had their DNA transformed. Several of these characters are people that never die. They can never be killed. Interesting, interesting. Captain America. Captain America is, and you go watch this, you know the comic book series, it starts out this little skinny, scrawny guy. I still don't know in the movie how they got the guy who played Captain America, because he's obviously got muscles. The CGI in this thing was incredible. You could not tell that that was a CGI body on him, because he's like this big, this tall, and he's got arms this big around, okay, and shoulders this wide. How they did it, I don't know. But anyway, they're going to transform now this weak man. They're going to transform him into this divine Superman. How do they do it? Well, they give him this concoction of whatever it is. And then they're going to use, here's a scene now from the movie. I caught this. They're going to give him the Vita Ray. Now remember, this takes place in the days of World War II. They're going to give him the Vita Ray. We don't know what that is. Notice the graphic here. The builder of the Vita Ray is Stark, and if actually it's a guy named Stark working on the project. That was Stark's dad, Iron Man's dad.